Hi, my name is Christopher Woodward. I'm the Artist Liaison for the Residency program here at Modern West. Our Residency program is really an outreach program where we invite artists and creatives to come and activate our space. Today I get to sit down with our newest resident, Jiyoun Lee Lodge. She is just finished her first month at our residency program and is doing some remarkable things, so we get to sit down and have a chat about what she's doing here today. Jiyoun, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me.
Of course. Would you tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to Utah?
Sure. My name is Jiyoun Lee Lodge. I was born in Korea, moved to America about 14 years ago to New York. Then I moved to Utah about 4 years ago. And currently in Modern West from July through end of September in the nice lighted window room, working on the new series Watermen that is in the show soon in the UMoCA this Friday, and also end of the this residency, which is end of September, will be the end of the residency show as well. And also currently working on the public art for the track station newly going up, and I got a contract for that, so I'm working on the design and hoping we put it up next early year. And that's it. That's what I'm working on. I'm an artist.
No, that's great. It's good to hear all the different projects you're balancing. It's a lot on your plate.
Thank you.
To dive right into your Waterman series, could you tell us a little bit about the consistent themes that you're looking at while making this, and motifs?
Sure. I'm generally interested in how people, their identity getting influenced and changed by the perception, like sensory information and the circumstances, how they're interpreted as subjectively on their memory, and that shifts around depending on the context they're observing. So mostly they're like portrait of the time and place and what a person, but it sometimes jumbles up that the forward and background and foreground changing sometimes around. Like for example, Waterman is not necessarily, could be about just the people or about the different background that the background actually doesn't have it projected into the figure. So it is not necessarily just a one person or me and other person, but it could be culmination of the things surrounding as essence and staged like a dance or like opera that is staged, and to show the like highlight of the moment or make an epic out of everyday life.
Yeah, the work does have a really beautiful sense of movement in it. All of it does.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about the motif of water.
Sure. So water represent since I moved to Utah, the Waterman whole series started as a journal recording that my attempt to adjust in the place. I lived in only big cities like New York and Seoul, which is crazy city. Like I didn't have to drive. I could meet people. Couldn't say it was necessarily easy, but like whole dynamic of living in a place that I have to drive around and meet the new people in the like non-crazy city perspective was very different, and I didn't know like dynamic about. I was also nervous moving in as a Asian woman. I wasn't sure how many were there and what kind of attitude, because sometimes I get the question that I never got asked before in New York kind of thing. So I was getting nervous. I tried to adjust. I sit down. I couldn't even open up, even though my space is much bigger than New York, what to do. So I would have a little pad in front of me, have a brush pen in front of me, because I wanted to free on expressing this figure in front of me, even this little freedom. As I'm calling and talk about life here, and I started projecting these little figures that is moving water, that has a bare arm and leg that shows some kind of vulnerability against the background that I wanted to I am aspiring, that I wanted to project that I'm doing well here. I wanted to see if I could succeed, and I observe and accept this background is new and I'll be here. I want to be part of the nice life, but I'm not doing well. So I was just talking to my friend while I'm doing that. I was just keep drawing and drawing, and I was nervously projecting myself with the figure and the background. I deliberately picked the fine line because I feel like they're almost like a pattern or almost like a very fragile reality that I could grab where it could go away, like a dissolve into the like bunch of string of lines. So I had that contrast because of the relationship that I wanted to project, and started with that, with the water, with that person, because water, that moving water doesn't exist in Utah. And coming from South Korea, that is surrounded peninsula, surrounded by 3 open seas, so as New York, I was thinking about like maybe missing some other place I was before, as a water as a motherland, and water as a some kind of that I could go back to, that I fear of also. And I wonder, me being moving water doesn't exist here, but by juxtaposing together, can I project the hope of that I could be accepted, I could be filling in the things doesn't exist before. I guess I was projecting that kind of hope, or accepting that I'm changing through those figures in that background. So in that sense, water is representing moving identity. At the same time, things doesn't exist here that I'm hoping to bring to get accepted and be harmonized all together.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. That's really great.
Thank you.
You talked a little bit about the fine line. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the stylistic approach that you're using, and well as medium approach. I know that this is a little different from your older bodies of work.
Right. So the character is coming from, I derive from like very more traditional Asian style of the more like thick brush strokes, and also had in mind what is East and West in style of they can kind of collide together, that from the practice I've been doing, from my experience on animation or like long time brushstroke practice, things like that. I thought of this very expressive and strong lined character that as a foreground character that is, I think it, in a sense, projecting the moving body really well, like water and the body. And I, in a sense, wanted to have it like body a little more not necessarily woman or man. I deliberately put a little more intention to make it a little ambiguous about the sex, and the back. So that's how the foreground characters is born, and the background I was looking for. I had that idea that I wanted to make a most fine line that is dissolving into the like. It could be barely holding on to. It's like a fragility of the reality. So I look for most thin line pen, and like later I settled to that pen. And as I'm making a bigger piece, it's more zoomed in. So I'm now it's a thicker, but the relationship between foreground and background character and the background depiction is coming from that idea of that main character is moving, and they're like in a sense of animated, in a sense of they're about to change, like about to be more willed and strongly individual, whereas background could be part of dissolving to it, or sometimes, or I put the contrast, especially when I depict the aspen trees, that I'm really fascinated by, because I got strong impression. I feel like an aspen tree represent Utah, where people wore the aspen eyes look like that they're looking at you, but and they're very cheery. The hands are very like a jazzy hand. It's like very welcoming, but at the same time, I have a feeling like the aspen eyes are looking at me, like judging me or trying to see who you are. And then I read about the aspen eyes are generated when the aspen trees started trying to grow, and they shed out the old arms to give it to young, to get it taller and taller. And I find the whole thing is very fascinating, and they also live in the groups, and they just spread out as a group together, aspen trees. I find that the organization maybe I somehow project that as how I perceive Utah and fascinated and want to describe that in part of my work as I'm understanding Utah and getting settled in. So in those things usually have a contrast because I really want to put an emphasis on eyes, even though the lines are very fragile and like dissolving into the pattern.